Hello, welcome back to Roguelike to Roguelites. This is Dungeon Souls, another, definitely more roguelite in this case game. And as you know, roguelike is a very specific formula where you do not gain anything after each death. This is far more the roguelite, where there's still the permadeath aspect and you do restart from zero. However, you do make permanent progress each time, unlike the other. Now, let's go into a little bit of review of the style of game. So, in this game, it's really generically designed in this one, and to be honest, it's not a bad thing. The gameplay is probably more where it focuses on, and even though I think some of the design aspects and a little bit of the story aspects are uninspired and to some degree annoying, I think overall it's done well. But I do have some nitpicks, and I'll probably go into that as I go through this playthrough, or part of this playthrough at least. So, the way this game works is you collect various different materials during your runs, and you also collect a general gold value by the end of your run, and you can use that for a variety of things. In the Arcane Forge, you can craft various different weapons for each of the different character classes, of which there's several with a different variety of different gameplay options. And using these materials, you can create these weapons that generally just have a altered status or effect to them. They're not incredibly useful, but to a degree, they lets you have a little bit of variety in your gameplay. And overall, each of these altered weapons is still inherently a bit more powerful than the base gear on any of these characters. So you go into the armory then, and you can select what weapon you want on which character. We kind of already have it all set up here, so no need about that. Then, one thing I will say that does annoy me in the armory here, you can't delete any of these. There's no just remove item sort of thing. We don't have any unequipables yet. I really haven't figured out how to get a lot of those. The crafting materials are kind of vague and hard to get, but they're likely more permanent buffs than these weapons here. Now, usually I try to beat the game at least once before doing a review. This game is really kind of challenging, and some aspects of it are a little bit unfair. Specifically, there's these boulder traps which can one-shot you because they'll literally combo you into a wall, because there's sometimes just no maneuverability away from these boulder traps, and it's really unfair at times where you can get caught with these. But for the most part, it's a little bit pretty decent, at least as far as enemy variety and how enemies behave and how you can sustain yourself. Now, going into the start, we'll just play single player, and yes, it does have local co-op. I've not really played that out, but with how clustered and several of these different things about the way this game plays, I could think local co-op would be almost infuriating. So let's just pick random here. As I said, there's a wide variety of classes. Each of them have their own mechanics. For example, this is a melee class. Now, this has a sort of League of Legends style system where you can upgrade your different abilities. So let's get this here. It's a rage ability. And that first ability there is actually your basic attack. So you can upgrade your basic attack on every character, which means there are a lot of different builds you can go as you go through. So for each dungeon, you'll have these randomly spawning enemies and also these crests. You have to activate X number of crests, as indicated in the corner. And once you activate enough crests, you can then move on to the next floor. There's also a variety of passive pickups and usable items you can pick up to help sustain you through the map. So the first thing you'll kind of notice, and it looks like they've reduced it for what it was before. It used to be infuriatingly bad, but that gold animation and item pickups usually are kind of blinding. Like, there's a pretty big example where it's blinding and hard to tell. They're actually quite filling on the screen, and it's a little bit distracting, I think, especially with how much enemy animations cover the screen, especially later in the game. So here's a chest, and we get a magnet, which is a kind of nice starter item. Lets us be able to attract things, makes it a little bit easier for pickup. Now, there is a bit of a trade-off thing. You could buy in-map items, and for the most part, you can generally afford them, but that also decreases how much gold you have at the end to increase your passives, which I'll show you after this run. So let's just do this here. That's a fair shield. Clear out a few more of these innies. Now, when you finish enough, you'll have this thing appear, and when it appears, it will chase you down and try to murder you. This is the infamous boulder traps I mentioned. And those things are just incredibly infuriating at times. Now, as you notice, the variety of traps is actually quite diverse, and will continue to increase in variety as you go through the map. You'll have some elemental-based ones when you get to certain areas that have unique characteristics to them. And also, you'll have these chests. One thing I think that is kind of bad, they don't ever spawn enough keys, I believe, for the chests that you encounter. So you always have to kind of forego chests as you go. And it's just sheer luck on whether or not you have the right materials for that. And that's kind of a really nasty situation where, well, this is kind of also a conundrum. They sell them for here, but then you sacrifice getting a guaranteed thing for a random thing. I think I'm going to go for the guaranteed. So you can actually swap between these by using Q and E here, and they are all assigned to the right click. Whoops, wrong key. Tab is also to let you increase your passive stats. Mostly I try to go for damage and defense, and, well, damage and resistance. Early on, there is actually a wide variety of enemies that'll deal magic damage in a very specific bonus area. But that bonus area actually has a little bit of a difficulty. That shelf you see to my right there is access to an alternate ending to this entry area. And almost all the enemies in there do magic. But it's also a little bit annoying. Only if you've picked up a book item for your passives can you open this going into this part. And that could just be frustrating, honestly, because you could do multiple runs in a row where you don't get a book by that point and have to restart if you want to go in that area. And that area is loaded with items, and you can get more items going through that route than you can progressing the normal way before the difficulty scales up. So, generally you want to have that happen. You want to have a reason to go through there. So, not having that is just not good. So, let's just go ahead and exit to stage 3, where we'll encounter the first boss. Now, if we had... Oops, forgot to upgrade stats. So, again, this guy is also magic, so even though we didn't go the alternate route, we can still get a good value out of having the magic resist. Now, you'll see, on it, he kind of has a decently good amount of health, but the boss fight's well choreographed out. It's not overly difficult. He's a very good first boss for what you're doing. And that's one thing I will say this game does well, is the mechanics of the battle is very well done between whatever class you play as, and each class feels definitely distinctly different in how you have to play them. Now, I'm kind of doing terribly here, because I'm also talking and trying to play at the same time, but for the most part, it's a strong battle. It's a good system, and I'm going to try to end this real quick so I can go kill myself to a boulder, hopefully, on the next map to show you the absurd damage they do. Now, also, one other thing you'll realize, health pickups, okay, there we go, are random, and they're assigned to the number keys, but if you don't get any health pickups, you can kind of be screwed in a lot of later situations. Because... Yep, okay. Yeah, can we break this so I can... There we go. Now, you always get a good, like, variety of loot here. And you have also other usable items other than healing potions where they'll increase damage. Now, one thing I've realized about this is that it's kind of dumb on how it does things. So, if I do this... Just quick save and exit, then quick start. Didn't do it this time. Sometimes it will literally just give you more items for doing that. So I think that's kind of a little bit of an odd thing, but it makes it so it's worthwhile to quit and restart every single boss fight. Now we're in the second area here. There's no secret area you can exit for alternate ending out of here. The next one's not till the third one, but I want to show you the boulder just to show you this dumbness. Now, you notice that was 3 hits, about 25 damage. We're playing actually one of the much more tanky characters. Now, imagine you're one of the other characters that has a very low defense stats. That would actually insta-kill you with those same moves. So, let's go ahead and... Okay, another one of these. Come on, kill me. I've never actually had difficulty trying to get killed by a boulder before. This is a new experience. There we go. Now, let's go to main menu. Now, another thing that makes this very, very thoroughly in the Roguelite versus the Roguelike section is the passives. Now, these passives, you can just spend gold and have inherently better damage, stamina, magic focus, all of these things. So, honestly, that is probably the biggest thing that says, hey, this is a roguelite. You will get benefits each time. Now, one thing I will have to say, I like the game's mechanics, I like the game's systems, but there are certain irreversible story elements that if you mess up, there is nothing to do except restart your save. Otherwise, this one enemy is permanently in a hard mode, and there is no benefits from beating this certain enemy in hard mode. It is just infuriating, a huge waste of resources, and makes the game more difficult every subsequent playthrough if you go that route. So, I don't know why they added that system in, but it is not a good system. Maybe if they increase the rewards for doing this hard mode, it could be more reasonable, because he does give you a very valuable item even when he's not in a hard mode that helps you immensely if you go the route that I'm talking about. Now, I don't want to spoil anything, of course. That's why I stopped after the first area. But it's just a really bad decision option. But again, this game, I would say, I'd probably give it a, and I'm trying to be fair here, probably a 7 out of 10. There's a lot of variety of classes, even a TF2 engineer. I don't know why they put him in here, because he doesn't function like an engineer, but yeah. But he does function like that. He does some miniature things, but he looks very much like the TF2 engineer and has no turret, which annoys me for some reason. But overall, it's just a fun game. This rank system here, I'm not entirely sure what it changes. I've not done anything with it to change it, so I think it just shows how much or how well you've played the characters. I've had really good luck with the Thief because he has a very strong auto attack move that you can boost ridiculously. But yeah, that's Dungeon Souls. Honestly, I'd recommend it for the mechanics. I think visually it's a little bit distracting, and I don't think I can recommend co-op on it just because of how cluttered the screen is, and especially in late game, how you must dodge lots of things very precisely, especially with a low health character. Like I mentioned earlier, we got hit twice with a 25 attack on the Barbarian. Now, it didn't look like much on the Barbarian because he has this big 150 health pool to start with, minus any benefits or additional defense you get. But you look over here at the Thief, that would have killed him. Look over at the Archer, would have killed him. Cleric. Yeah, pretty much a majority of the characters, it would have insta-killed them just to touch that boulder twice. The only reason we survived is because we were one of the much more tankier classes. So, boulders, please nerf. And enjoy the game if you like it. And feel free to subscribe or put a like on the video. And I'll be back again with more roguelites to roguelikes later on. I think I'll hit up Cave Blazers next.